We are still in a pandemic, which has changed a lot of the ways in which we normally experience award season. This year's Golden Globes were largely done on Zoom, as were the Grammys. Normally, we would have been done with the Oscars by now, but the Academy decided to move the awards until late April 25th to be exact. This gives us plenty of time to review all the Best Picture nominees. Now, we've already covered Judas and the Black Messiah, and you can go back into the feed to hear that review. But between now and the Oscars, we will review all the rest, starting today with Nomadland. I'm Ronald Young Jr., and I'm on the couch. All right, this is Ronald, and I am on the couch after watching Nomadland. Nomadland, written and directed by Chloe Zhao, based on the book Nomadland, Surviving America in the 21st Century by Jessica Bruder, starring Frances McDormand, David Strathairn, Linda May, Swankie, Bob Wells, Derek Endres, Peter Spears, and Tay Strathairn. All right, Nomadland is available on Hulu. It is a Best Picture nominee, as I'm reviewing all the Best Picture nominees right now. It is a movie about a woman named Fern who loses her job after the U.S. gypsum plant in Empire, Nevada shuts down. And she had worked there for years. This is a period piece. It was done in 2000. It's set in 2011. And she decides that after her husband dies, she sells most of her belongings, buys a van, and decides to live in it and travel the country, kind of following the work. So she starts off working at an Amazon fulfillment center. Through the winter, she connects with other nomads who are, again, following the work as they go. She makes friends, and the movie is just chronicling her life. So watching it initially, I remember watching it and thinking, this movie reminds me a lot of The Rustler, where there's a lot of us following Fern, played by Frances McDormand, as she kind of, goes about her life. Sometimes her life is sitting in her van. Sometimes it's eating. Sometimes it's sitting outside with other people. Sometimes it's sitting by herself. Sometimes it's the thing she deals with other people, thinking that she's homeless. And she's like, no, I'm not homeless. I'm houseless. It's all of these interactions we're watching her have with other folks. That's a large portion of the movie, much like The Rustler, where we're kind of just watching Mickey Rourke's character kind of just go through life being like a wrestler, and we're realizing more things about him as we go. That's what this reminded me of. They kind of unfold the movie as we go. We find out that she's, living a nomadic life, that she's still in the town where people know her. She's still in Empire, Nevada. There's still people that know her there. There's people that are saying, hey, you could come live with us, but she's choosing to stay out there. And as the movie goes on, you're learning that she's new to the nomadic lifestyle, but this is really what she wants to do. And Frances McDormand does a very good job of portraying this woman. She's very unassuming. She does a good job of portraying unassuming while having like great depth of acting just in her face, in the looks that she makes, in the exchanges, in the way she says things, in the way that her body language, all of that. It's not like a huge physical performance, except if you're looking at her face, where, small things are happening in the way she smiles, with sad eyes. It's truly a feat of acting watching this. And rightfully so. She has been nominated for Best Actress. She won for 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. She also won for Fargo back in 1997. She is definitely a titan of acting, and you could see that here. You could see here that there's no signs of her like letting up from doing these like very emotionally deep roles, where much of the weariness and stuff that she has to portray is all done through her face and body language, and not necessarily as much with the words on the page, which are also well written. Now, this movie, when I was watching it, I remember thinking, this movie is a bit repetitive. What would happen is we'd see Frances McDormand maybe like at a fire or, washing her clothes or doing a puzzle with a friend or something like that. Then you see her maybe driving or going somewhere in her van, and then you see her walking outside. And it'd be scenes like this over and over and over again, where there'd kind of be like some sort of set piece where she interacts with a human or not, or just interacts with something or human. Then she interacts with her van, and then she interacts with nature, and it'd be that over and over again. It felt kind of repetitive, and I was watching it, and if you're not careful, you can be like, man, this movie is like a little bit aimless. It's beautiful, it's beautifully shot. You get a lot of a lot of the landscape of the southwestern states and of the midwestern states. You get a lot of landscape, all of that, very nice to look at, and you could tell that they really took care and they really care about what the United States looks like in those areas and what the people of the United States looks like in those areas. At times it felt aimless until it goes on further and I realized, oh, this is a movie about grief. And maybe I was a little lost in that in the beginning, because in the beginning, they spell out the fact that her husband died, and they spell out the fact that she is now doing this thing, being nomadic. But then you realize with the resources that she has, she still has her sister was alive and well, has offered her a place to stay. She has had like people in her town have offered her a place to stay. She's had fellow nomads who have houses and stuff that are offering her a place to stay, but she keeps turning it down. And as the movie goes on, it's kind of revealed why she stayed in Empire, Nevada so long, why she stayed with her husband, Bo, so long. And as it nails that, I'm like, everything else in the movie kind of made sense about why it was so repetitive, why she was going in circles, why she was kind of just like, like just going through life. Because if anybody here has dealt with grief, you understand that a lot of times you're just doing whatever the next thing is. You're just doing it. You're doing it. You're going through it. Sometimes you enjoy it. Sometimes you laugh. Sometimes you smile. Sometimes you're crying. But you're going through each and everything over and over and as it goes. And some people handle that worse than others. I think an example of this, maybe not handling grief so well, is Manchester by the Sea with Casey Affleck, where he is very depressed. He's having a very rough time with his grief, as opposed to, and I'm not saying that the character Fern here is having a great time with hers, but she's certainly handling it in a different way. At times, watching this movie in a pandemic felt a little sadder than I wanted it to be. There was times when I was watching this and I felt very sad, like profoundly sad watching this, just was bringing me down. And I watched this, it is Friday afternoon. I started watching at 4:00. It's now 6:00. The sun is still out. I have no reason to feel, sad. It's going to be the sun will probably be up for at least another hour and a half, which is great. But the movie it's a bit of a downer at times. And the one thing I do note is like movies like this often get nominated for Oscars. These are not necessarily Ronald movies, which makes them difficult to score, because I'm like, I understand technically why it got nominated. I also understand that this is a movie that shows America through the lens of liberal folks. It shows Americana through the lens of liberal folks. So Chloe Zhao is Chinese. She's a Chinese filmmaker. I believe she has 3 other films under her belt. Very critically acclaimed. People like her work. This is, I believe, one of the first things I've seen from her, if not the first thing I've seen from her. And I think she made a good movie. However, I still think that this is a movie that shows America through what looks like a very liberal lens. And when I say that, I mean movies like this get nominated for Oscars, and it's often because there's a liberal person taking a piece of Americana and making it in a way that makes other liberals who watch it go, "Aw," and I don't know how I feel about that all the time. It's like the palatability of American struggle, or Americana, if you will. It makes the parts of it seem like more quaint than usual. And I would argue maybe this it is showing like a lot of the different difficult parts that Fern has to deal with in being a nomad. But watching the movie, there's parts of it where I was just like, this is clearly a movie made to get Oscars. And it has the independent feel, all of that. And so it wasn't necessarily my cup of tea. I think there's going to be a lot of people that like it, that think it's great, that are going to really connect with it. And I think I would agree with most people on why they say it is a good movie. But for Ronald, I wasn't necessarily feeling it as much as probably, I don't think enough happened in it for me for me to enjoy it the way I think I would have. But again, you're talking to a guy who didn't really like Manchester by the Sea, who really didn't like The Wrestler, and other movies that are kind of like this, where we're just following a subject kind of through their life, and they're kind of, in some ways deteriorating, or in some ways just kind of coping with what's going on around them. So maybe that's me saying I don't like movies that deal with grief in this way, which doesn't make it a bad movie. With that in mind, I give it 3 out of 5 stars. I think it was fine. I think it was good. I will not watch it again. Very depressing. Made me feel real sad. Even the Pite's moments of beauty did not make me feel happy. So I don't necessarily think it's for Ronald, but for those of you who like that type of movie that I just described, you're probably going to love this. You're going to eat this right up. I don't think it's going to win the Oscar. And I will let you know what I do think is going to win the Oscar once I review it, but I don't think this one is going to be the winner. But good movie. It's on Hulu. You can watch it and let me know what you think. And with that, Leaving the Theater is a production of Oh It's Big Ron Studios. Theme music by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. To find out more about this show and other Oh It's Big Ron Studios shows, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Oh It's Big Ron. That's at ohitsBigRon. If you like this show, check out our sister show, Time Well Spent. Leaving the Theater will be back soon, but until then, I'll be here on the couch.